So a couple of years back, I got kidney stones. It was the most painful experience of my entire life. I was bent over, crying, sweating, in severe pain for hours. When I got there, the doctor almost immediately was like, it looks like you got kidney stones, man, from what I can see. And I was like, Doc, what could I have done to prevent that? And he goes, well, 1, you can hydrate. 2, what kind of underwear are you using? I'm like, what? Some boxers that my wife bought me? He's like, well, there's your problem right there. If you would have had Sheath Underwear, you would have had the support system that you needed in order to prevent kidney stones. The technology has a pouch for your genitalia. It separates it into different compartments, and it provides a support system that has been unmatched since men discovered AA meetings. So go to sheathunderwear.com, use my promo code RRBG, save 20%, and prevent kidney stones. Sheath Underwear can prevent kidney stones. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the RRBG Podcast. I'm here with my homie, Chris Burns. How you doing, brother?
I'm outstanding, man. Good to see you, Eddie. It's been a while.
Dude, it's been a long time. I'm wondering when's the last time we saw each other in person? Was that at Storecade?
It might have been Storecade, man.
God damn.
The legendary, the epic Storecade.
People don't know, man. People don't know the crazy shit you guys are doing and the crazy shit we were doing in that store. People just don't get it.
I mean, there's a reason it's called the world famous. You know what I mean? And we were able to put on I mean, there had been wrestling matches there before because of, like the late great Andy Kaufman and his legendary run as the intergender champion of the world. But for the first time ever, we put a wrestling ring inside the world famous Comedy Store, had a legit show, fans, the whole nine, and then COVID fucked us all up.
And no disrespect to Andy Kaufman, obviously, and everything that's happened there beforehand, but that was a legitimate wrestling show. Like you had the Lucha Brothers there. You had, it was a real Darby Allin, the fucking TNT champion of the world, was
absolutely,
and it just sucks because it felt like the beginning of something that was going to happen more often and everything, and then just fucking COVID,
Yeah, man, that was the plan, to do it every few months and keep working with a lot of local talent, keep the guys on the Store Horsemen Podcast as like part of the ongoing storyline, and form factions and alliances and things like that. And yeah, we had a lot of plans coming in the pipeline, but who knows once more people, I guess, are vaccinated and all that good stuff.
Yeah, we're getting closer, right? We're getting closer to maybe possibly opening up the world again. I don't know.
If only.
I miss the local shows, man. I realize now that I'm watching AEW and all that, and I see all the talent that I would see at local shows here. I'm like, man, I was spoiled. We as wrestling fans in SoCal are spoiled.
I mean, 100%. You said it with Storecade. I mean, so many of those guys are playing prominent roles in MLW and AEW, and showing up on Dark, especially with AEW's open door policy it seems to let any talent from anywhere come play. So it's like, yeah, man, we were seeing that on a regular basis when, out in Reseda, later in downtown, PCW Ultra, Long Beach, all kind of local stuff happening. And then PWG was always kind of the sort of the measuring stick for who are the guys that were going to be next, kind of in the business always. So,
yeah, man.
It's sad, but
I miss it.
Not forgotten.
Not forgotten. I miss it, and I think it'll come back. I'm thinking it will come back sooner than later.
Totally.
And I was looking at even like NXT. You look at what's going on in NXT. I see Swerve out there. I'm like, man, I used to see Swerve once, maybe twice a month down here.
Yep.
Wrestling at PCW Ultra.
Friggin' Priscilla Kelly, man, and
Priscilla
Gigi
Kelly.
Dolan now. I couldn't believe that they signed her.
Yeah, Jake Atlas, also a PCW former champ. It's just a lot of really great talent now. I guess in a way, maybe this helped their careers because now, instead of just doing local shows, now this is they have to go do NXT or AEW. But I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully everything opens back up. We get some local shows again, but you haven't stopped working. I've noticed, Store Horseman has actually kind of taken a break because you can't really record out of the Comedy Store anymore or anything like that. But you've been busy, man. I see you. I saw you with your new show, Wrestle Fetish, and talking to Tony Khan. What the hell? How did that happen?
Funny story. I mean, somewhat funny story. I it's weird how this whole thing got started. Like we, as the Store Horsemen, me, Tony, Matt, Josh, Johnny, all kind of came out to each other as wrestling fans at the Comedy Store. And since that day happened, like the most random wrestling related shit has happened to me in my life. Like more so than ever before. I was, just a regular fan. So, Josh and I went to the first Double or Nothing in Vegas.
Mhm.
And just by happenstance, a comedian that we both know well, we run into randomly. And I'm just like asking her, like, wait a minute, what are you doing here? I didn't know you were a wrestling fan. Like, you're not part of the Brain Trust. You're not part of the clique. And she's like, no, I don't even like wrestling. A friend of mine is Tony. I guess this is his show. And I'm like,
Wow.
Tony Khan? It's like, yeah, absolutely. So, one thing led to another. We ended up sort of kicking it in Vegas a little bit. And, he and I hit it off. And we've been sort of doing mark texts to one another for the last few months. And then I finally kind of struck up the courage to say, hey, man, you want to come, holler at us on the podcast? And it just ended up working out really well because we were, Wrestle Fetish is a topic-based podcast where we don't really cover the weekly stuff that's going on anymore. We don't really talk about Raw, SmackDown, NXT.
Yeah.
We do that on our Patreon, but the regular episodes are topic-based. So we did a topic about like interpromotional warfare, WWE versus WCW in New Japan versus WCW back in the day, CZW versus Ring of Honor for all you indie heads who remember that shit from back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And, it just coincided with everything that AEW is doing right now, working with Impact and working with New Japan, and before that, working with AAA and all that good stuff. So yeah, it was a great interview, and caused a little bit of a stir with the Conan podcast, which we always love. We always love controversy, because they tend to call Tony's booking into question, and he had some words for him. So
yeah,
it's always fun. Always fun. I mean, it's all friendly competition, is what it is.
It's as it should be, and that's how you all everyone gets better, I hate this mentality. Like every time I see a post anywhere about anything, it's always like, well, if it's an AEW post, like, well, NXT's better, so whatever, blah blah. It's like, just relax. Everyone's having a blast. Everyone,
right? This is some of the best time to be a wrestling fan in ages. And look, I'm not above criticizing, but I criticize because I want every show to be as good as it can be.
Sure.
I'm still watching everything. You know what I mean? I'm still watching every episode of NXT. I still tune into 205 Live sometimes.
Nice.
Like, I'm not going anywhere. My thing is, it's possible to like AEW and WWE and NXT and New Japan, Impact, but you can like it all.
I've been tuning into Impact. I've been tuning into Impact thanks to the Good Brothers. I mean, I'll give them all credit for that. Like I've tried in the past to tune into Impact. I'm like, okay, this is like a local SoCal show that that somebody's filming,
Mm-hmm.
And it's fine. That's not bad, but I'd rather be there, than to actually watch it as a show. But ever since the whole cross promotional thing started happening with Kenny and the Good Brothers, I'm like, all right, I'm in. I guess I'm always in for the Bullet Club and the Biz Cliz, the Good Brothers.
I think the only thing Impact is missing is they don't have an identity, really. Does that make sense? Like, New Japan is the really traditional, like, we treat this like a sport promotion. WWE is, come on, it's the big time. It's the circus. AEW is like the markiest of the mark stuff, in my opinion. Like, anything you might like about wrestling, they got it for you. You like technical wrestling, they got guys that do that. You want the bloody, exploding barbed wire death matches, which is getting ready to go down next month, they got that. If you want the high spots, they got that. Like whatever you need from wrestling, they're a whole mixed bag. But you know,
even stuff you don't need, like Shaq.
yeah, 100%. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, you know, you kind of know what you're getting with those other promotions. With Impact, you tune in, you have no idea really what, like if you were asked to explain, well, what is Impact? You're just like, yeah, it's the one that's not the other three. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And back in the day, they kind of had an identity with AJ Styles and Samoa Joe and the whole X Division thing that they had sort of innovated. And that was decent stuff. I mean, and people still criticized it then, but if you look at the numbers versus now, you know, AEW would kill for the ratings that Impact was getting then. So, you know, you just gotta be able to distinguish yourself from the competition. It's all good.
Yeah, and you know, and I know it'll never happen because Impact has such a legacy, you know, a history in its name and TNA and all that. But I would like to see Impact become the NXT of AEW, where like it's like a side, you know, they just merge, and this is you'll see like younger talent kind of building up, and then eventually they'll make it to the AEW, to TNT, and everything.
Yeah, well, they need a creative lead, you know, like. Yeah. Someone like Paul Heyman would flourish in Impact, man. You know what I mean? Or shit, even Jim Cornette, you know what I mean? A lot of people take issue with his stance on modern wrestling, but I mean, the guy is still very sound-minded when it comes to wrestling theory and psychology and things like that. And look, he did a really good job with OVW back in the day. Ring of Honor in its kind of middle period, he did a great job with. The guy knows wrestling. You can't argue with that.
Well, what was that? Wasn't he like getting involved with NWA Power, and then like something bad happened? I didn't really tune into that whole situation, but
I mean, I'm always abreast of the wrestler says something racist situations that happen, and I guess he made a joke about like, you know.
Oh wait, yeah, wasn't it about the bucket of chicken thing? Was that the one?
It was like a bunch of guys. He compared guys jumping on another guy quickly to riding through Zimbabwe or Nigeria with like a bucket of chicken or something like that.
Right. Yeah. Now, yeah.
I get why people might construe that as racist.
Sure.
But quite honestly, I agreed with Jim. I thought it was more of a hunger joke than it was a black joke.
Right.
And, you know, even still, look, man, I got pretty thick skin. I couldn't survive at the Comedy Store if I didn't.
Right.
And, you know, I just thought that it got blown way out of proportion. Let him be reprimanded. Let the man still have a job. It's fine. You know, I've heard Vince McMahon literally say the N-word on SmackDown. Like, we're okay. We're going to be okay. Yeah. I promise you guys.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a you know, it's such a weird time for that. It's a weird time overall because of the pandemic and everything, but it's also a weird time with stuff like that because the whole getting canceled situation. Like, I agree with calling stuff out. Like, we need to call shit out, otherwise we'll never be better.
Right.
But at the same time, like, you know, we can't like it can't just blow up to a point where somebody's entire career is ruined over a joke. You know.
Certainly.
I don't know, but it is what it is. I think, you know, people are now scared to work with Corny, though. I'll say that. I don't think he'll work at Impact.
Probably not. Not. We probably won't see him in a major wrestling promotion ever again at this point. And you know, he's paid his what? I mean, he's given his time. He's given so many years of his life to wrestling. People love the podcast. People, you know, support him. So he's doing just fine. And he don't like to travel no way.
That's true. That's true. I don't really listen to his podcast. I sometimes hear like snippets here and there, but somebody sent me a compilation of his hatred for Kenny Omega, and I just couldn't stop laughing, dude. My goodness. That guy hates Kenny Omega a lot.
Kenny Omega, he won't even say Vince Russo's name.
Oh, yeah.
He only refers to him as Shit Stain. And, I mean, it's just hilarious. Hearing just an old Southern man go balls to the wall ballistic about, you know, Kenny Omega doing flips and he won't, and it's like, it's not even based in his current work, really. It's, he holds a vendetta against Kenny because he's had matches. Yeah, he had matches against a little girl. He had matches against a blow-up doll, and Jim just can't let it go.
Right.
Cannot let it go. And that sort of deep vitriol for things like that, I mean, that just gets me going. I can listen to people just scream into the Matrix for an hour about things they hate for so long. It's just freaking hilarious because he's so colorful with everything that he says.
Yeah, man.
He wasn't a great promo in wrestling for no reason, and he's cutting promos every week on this guy, and I can't get enough.
I gotta start tuning in more because I mean, I kind of see where he comes from. If you get into the old school wrestler mentality, I can see how the flippy stuff can piss you off.
Yeah.
Barnett, our mutual friend, he's the same way. Where whenever he and I get together and talk wrestling, he's just like, I don't watch all that. Like, why is everybody standing around waiting for this dude to jump off of the top rope? I'm like,
right.
Yeah, I get it. It sucks, but it's also entertaining to see. Athletics wise, it's entertaining to see someone do flips and crazy, physical achievements that I will never do.
It's like I said, it's kind of like it's all, objective. It's just like that. Some people like it to look like a fight. You know what I mean? And New Japan's really great at that.
Yep.
Some people like it to look like a show. And, WWE is really good at that. Yep. Some people, want to just see the athletics, and AEW is good at that. So it's just really kind of what your flavor is. Never has there been, I disagree with Cornette, and I don't agree that all the stuff in the old NWA and the territories looked like a legitimate contest and blah, blah, blah. Like, come on, man. The Rock and Roll Express was doing some crazy shit, and, Flair and all these people were wrestling for an hour. You know what I mean? No fights last that long. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
What are we talking about? And then, there's a fine line between what you're trying to make believable and what's pro wrestling. Right. You know what I mean? It's like, if you're fine with The Undertaker existing as a concept, like, you should be fine with some of the more flippy shit going on.
Definitely. And even him, Undertaker did some flying around sometimes, and and it made it even crazier because you're like, wow, that's a huge man to be flying around. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Yeah, I enjoy all of it. I've been watching a lot more. I've been watching wrestling now, like if I had a wrestling podcast, which I used to, but I don't anymore. But my friends are like, why are you watching WWE? They have Bad Bunny. I'm like, you're right. It sucks. I don't want to see Bad Bunny on the TV. I'm sorry.
I may get a lot of hate from the wrestling fandom that listens to this.
Oh no.
Listen to me. Okay. There's times where they bring in celebrities to wrestling, right? And it's all wrong. Just like we talked about earlier with Shaq. Like, first of all, Shaq, I don't know if people watch Shaq on the NBA on TNT. He can barely move. I don't want to see him wrestle. Like,
did you see the promo? They were like, "Oh, we're gonna show this week. They were like, we're gonna show a training montage." I'm like, "Cool. I'd like to see Shaq, move." And he's sitting on a bench watching Jade throw basketballs. I'm like, "This is a training montage."
100%. Look, no, not name dropping, but I am familiar with Shaq's son.
Okay.
He played on the same basketball team with a family member of mine, and it's like, even then we used to joke about how Shaq can't even tie his own shoes. Like, he can't even get down anymore to tie his own shoes. He's gonna fucking wrestle.
Well, maybe if he pulls out the icy hot, he'll be fine.
There you go. But like, because what you don't want to see is like the Snoop Dogg almost miss everybody, flop off the top rope situation. You don't want that.
Yeah.
The difference with Bad Bunny, and I can't even believe I'm saying this, there's a swagger to him where you can see that he's not just a celebrity fan, he's a celebrity mark, and he really loves wrestling and really gets it. All in his walk, his delivery, the way he interacts with the crowd and the other wrestlers, his whole entrance, it's like, it's a different thing kind of going on where it's like, he belongs. Like, you could tell that he belongs, and it's not like completely out of place. Now, he needs to stay in his lane. The 24/7 championship, fine.
Yeah.
I don't know if I need to see him like in a big time WrestleMania spot,
the Elimination Chamber.
Yeah. I don't need a Floyd Mayweather situation or an LT situation. I don't need any of that from Bad Bunny. But as like a side character to help get Damian Priest over, especially with the Latin audience, why not?
That
Let's
was
do
my
it.
major beef, actually.
Really,
I was like,
really.
look, I see Damian Priest as a metalhead. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
his entrance is metal. They got double pedals. He's fucking headbanging. He's doing the
Right,
horns.
right.
And here comes reggaeton rap dude. I know that Damian Priest is not listening to that music, even if he is, they're from the same nationality or whatever. I don't even know if they are. I know Damian's Puerto Rican. I don't know if Bunny is Puerto Rican, but
Bunny is universal.
yeah. But I'm like, in my head, I'm like, Damian would never hang out with that guy. I'm happy
Right.
I'm happy that he's getting the rub and making money.
Yeah.
Happy for him. But at the same time, I'm like, I can't buy it because I know he wouldn't hang out with it.
I feel you.
Yeah.
I'm, but also, you got to think Vince McMahon, and his
Sure.
thing is,
they're both Latinos. Throw them in
they're all
there.
the same. Exactly. Latin people only wrestle Latin people. Black people only wrestle black people. Like, that's just kind of how it goes.
Yeah. Nah, I mean, it's fine. I just, like you said, I'm okay with the 24/7 thing. I just don't want, as long as I can skip it. Like, I don't want him on any major programming.
Right.
Because I'm just not, I can't, one of my buddies was like, come on, it's good for business. I'm like, I know it's good for business, but I guarantee you put him in there with Walter and he gives him one chop and he'll never wrestle again.
100%. 100%.
Just
I
one
mean,
of those.
shout out to Walter and the whole NXT UK, man. They don't get a lot of publicity, but they're putting on some of the best matches week in and week out. If you have the time to, I mean, there's so much wrestling to consume every single week. It is tough to follow everything.
I sent everyone I knew that Walter Dragunov match.
Oh, yeah, so good.
I showed it to my wife and she started covering her eyes. She was like, why do you like this? What's wrong with you? I'm like, it's awesome. I don't know what to say.
Yeah. I mean, look, lately my catchphrase has been, we love an awful thing.
Yeah.
And, look, and I agreed with Cornette on the tip because he loved that match. And to him, that's what modern wrestling should look like. And again, yeah, if that's your cup of tea, absolutely. But, what are we kidding ourselves and pretending like Hulk Hogan, when he was drawing all that money in the 80s, was just putting on these athletic spectacles? You know what I mean? Like, that's never been the backbone of what pro wrestling is, essentially.
Well, you don't believe that?
You know what I'm saying? Exactly. You ever saw that in a fight? You know what? I'd actually probably stop fighting if my opponent in a real fight all of a sudden started.
Oh no, he's on meth. Run!
Yeah. It's like, oh no, this is not going to end well, one way or the other.
Yeah. I'm like I said, I'm a fan of all of it. I enjoy, it's entertainment to me. Barnett's been doing his Bloodsport stuff more and more now. I don't know if you caught Bloodsport 4, but I really loved the presentation of it. It's a little more brutal, a little more realistic into that. It's not quite Cain Velasquez trying to do MMA.
Why would you go ahead and make me feel bad right now?
Yeah, it's not quite that, but it's still really good pro wrestling, and I loved, Bloodsport 4 had the cool lighting and camera work. Like, they finally got it, because the first couple were great, but it still felt like an indie production, kind of like a GCW kind of local show, where this felt like a real, like, there's work being put into it now. And
I'm excited for that to keep growing and to keep building. That is such a great concept.
And I told Josh too, it's like having a Mox there is huge, because it helps the brand of Bloodsport, but it also helps him gain a little more credibility, even though he doesn't need it anymore. He's like ranked the #1 wrestler in the world or whatever.
Yeah.
It gave me another layer of respect for him to be like, well, if he's willing to go in there to do shit like that, then he's legit.
Yeah, man. I mean, look, we got to interview Moxley
I
on
remember.
the Store Horsemen Podcast, and it was just like his love of this sport and this art form, and you just love to see it. Just hearing him talk about it with such passion and such excitement, especially from a guy who's like historically stoic. You know what I mean? But once we started talking about kind of some of the older stuff that he was a fan of and what he likes about doing this stuff, you get why. Okay, now I get why you were coming up in CCW doing these friggin' barbed wire rope matches and why you want to do the deathmatch stuff, even now that you're in the AEW main event and you're showing up at Bloodsport. It's like I totally get it now. I totally get it, and I always enjoy seeing guys who love doing what they do. Like Daniel Bryan is another guy who comes to mind. Just anytime you see the passion, like you see it come right up off of them, like wearing their heart on their sleeve, kind of, but it's the passion instead. Like that's always inspiring, and that's why those guys always succeed, no matter what they're doing.
Yeah, man, and you look at like Cesaro, for example. That's another one that I feel he's like a traditional, like he loves the business,
Yeah.
and he's willing to do whatever it takes. And I'd love to see Cesaro in Bloodsport. That would be fucking huge.
Incredible.
Imagine that.
He'd be incredible.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm excited to where wrestling is heading. I still get shit from all my friends that don't watch, where they're like, "Well, you're an idiot for watching wrestling. Like, why are you watching wrestling when there's UFC?" It's like, well, it's not the same. It's a different thing.
It's such a psycho thing to me when people do that. It's just like, you watch TV. Everyone watches TV. Everyone watches movies.
Yep.
And like, what? Yeah, we're aware that it's a work. Like, you know what kind of psycho we'd have to be to think pro wrestling was on the up and up?
Yeah.
Like, I'm almost insulted when people are like, "Oh, it's fake," right? It's like,
no shit, really?
who do you think I am? Like, you think I'm a grown adult who thinks that an undead Undertaker would join be a wrestler as a career? Do you think that I truly believe, you know what I mean, that these things are happening on a weekly basis? That, even something as simple as like an Irish whip would allow someone to be thrown across a ring for, you know what I mean? Like, come on, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
But at the same time, Star Wars and Marvel open up to hundreds of millions of dollars. Do people think that there's Jedis running around somewhere on this fucking planet? Like,
isn't there a European Jedi Academy somewhere? I heard about that.
Yeah, it's like, relax. Like, we get it. You know what I mean? That's not why we're watching it. It's not a competition, my guy. We're just enjoying the show.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned the word competition. I got heated with when I saw, what was it? I think it was Tom Segura was talking shit about wrestling.
Yeah,
and he had a bunch of people on, talked about it. And I did have one point that I could bring up that was the whole thing that he said. It's not a competition, and that's why I don't think there should be a champion. I'm like, well, it is a competition. It may not be a traditional competition. They're not butting heads until one of them gives up. But people need to compete for the champion, for the right to become champion. Like, the person who decides who's getting that championship shot needs to be impressed by you.
Right.
And you need to beat out all the other guys, show up every day, kick ass, do your thing well in order to get a title shot. So I do believe there is, validity to the title. Like, there is.
Oh, yeah.
If you're a champ, that means you can go out there and hit the mic properly. You're doing all your spots properly. It is a competition. It may not be a straightforward sports competition, but you're still competing with a bunch of other guys that want that belt,
And that's why I took offense to, actually, it was Ryback's comments where he was saying, "Oh, the championship's just a prop. It doesn't mean anything. Wrestling's fake, blah, blah." It's like, no. It means something when a multi-million-dollar company is entrusting you to be the main focus of said product. Exactly. That's a lot of responsibility. That's a lot of pressure. And the life of a pro wrestler is already unbelievably chaotic, painful, dangerous. You're away from your family a whole lot, so it has a mental cost to it. There's so much that you have to sacrifice to be a pro wrestler. So add that on top of, okay, you're our guy. You're our number one guy. You're the guy that we're going to turn to make sure that this company stays successful, stays afloat, and even grows. That is a lot on somebody's shoulder. So, yeah, it means something to be the fucking champion. Whether you think that they legitimately won it or not, that doesn't matter. The point is, you're still the guy with the rocket on his back. You're still the guy with the spotlight on him. You're still the guy with that's a target for everyone that that every one of your colleagues.
Yep.
So that's a lot to deal with. And so, I give nothing but respect to the guys who end up with the straps in this business for sure.
Yeah, man. And speaking of the straps, I mean, what a way Drew McIntyre has stepped up, hey? Like, I remember a year ago, talking to Tony and them, like, I think that guy's going to be a potential, big champ. And he was like, nah, he's not ready. I'm like, he's ready. And he definitely was.
100%. I mean, you got to remember, Drew McIntyre to me is like Kevin Hart in a lot of ways. Like, Kevin Hart was a lot of people don't know this, but before Kevin blew up, he was already being looked at by a lot of networks, a lot of production companies, agencies, whatever. The guy didn't have 15 minutes of stand-up material. And he had holding deal after holding deal. They tried him out on all these different sitcom pilots. They thought he was going to be a fucking star off rip. He got a starring role in Soul Plane before anyone even really knew who he was. Then when that movie flopped, he was all of a sudden a pariah in the comedy community. Like, it was like, oh, that's the dude with the movie who flopped. And so
right.
Couple that with not even having 15 minutes worth of material, nobody wants to put you on stage. He had to do a lot of pay-for-play situations and grind it the fuck out. So by the time it came back around and he blew up the second time, now you see he's really taking the ball and running with it and really killing it in his career. And that's how I feel about Drew McIntyre. They brought him into the company. They gave him the gimmick of the chosen one.
Right.
Like, all eyes on him. Like, oh, you're going to be the guy. And yeah, he was a kid. He wasn't ready for that kind of situation yet. He wasn't polished enough. He didn't have the experience, and he fizzled out, and he got fired, and he was gone. And he stepped his game up, got big on the indies, started putting on ridiculously good matches in Europe, here in the United States, all over the place, to the point where it was like, okay, let's bring him back, see what he can do, see what he's learned. And like you said, he's absolutely killed it ever since he returned. It's just a damn shame that his crowning moment when he beat Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, there was no crowd to see it.
Yeah. And he was like at the top of the fan love at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Like, everybody was loving it. They were doing the countdown with him, like the whole thing. It was it was huge right up to that moment. And it's a shame that happened. But hey, he's taken, like you said, took the ball and ran with it. And I think he's doing a tremendous job. Him and even Roman, man. I used to hate Roman so much, and they finally figured it out. They finally figured it out.
I am thankful that Johnny is not on Wrestle Fetish, because he has been touting this Roman Reigns thing for so long. And in fairness, none of us hated Roman because of Roman.
No, right. It was the booking. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like they put Roman in these horrible situations, gave him the worst possible lines to say, stripped him of his personality, and he just became a smiley, vanilla white meat baby face. And it was just like, no one likes this. No one likes anyone who's like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So why am I going to cheer this guy who acts that way? And you're telling me that he's the best. He's beating all of my favorites. All the guys that I want to see pushed to the top aren't, because this guy has to be. Like, of course I'm going to react negatively. Now that they've embraced the booze and given him a personality and a purpose and a cause, and he's not saying things like suffering succotash in his promos, that's something I can get behind. You know what I mean? Like, come on. Yeah.
I'm so glad they did that to him, because, I hated him. And I didn't want him on TV. And like, this is a terrible thought, but I was like, man, when he went away with leukemia, I was like, yes, please go recover, go away. Like, I don't want you hurt. I don't want you to be sick, but also just go. And
that's saying a lot when a guy comes back from leukemia, complications with leukemia, and he's not the most over babyface in the world.
Right.
That says a lot. That says a whole lot. So
yeah. When he came back, it was like, oh no.
Right. It was like, here we go again.
He's back. Yeah. No. Yeah, but yeah, it's great what they've done, man. But I know that both you and I can talk wrestling for hours, but I want to
Yeah.
shine a little more light on you and what you're doing with your stuff,
Mhm.
man. Like you've got Wrestle Fetish is doing great. Obviously, it's
Thank you.
still relatively new, but you know, you're off to a running start with Tony Khan as a guest. I mean, that's huge. That now opens so many doors. That's kind of how this podcast was even able to reach the levels it's gotten to, is because I started it just by, you know, hey, major Grammy award winning artist, boom, and then everybody else is going to be like, well, I want to be on there too. Yeah, so,
Right.
so that's going to be huge for for your show, Wrestle Fetish. I mean, you're also your talent buyer for Live Nation Comedy. Is that, am I reading that right?
That's
What does that
correct.
mean?
That's correct.
Explain that to me.
Basically, I've reversed the slavery thing, and I own lots of whites.
Perfect for
I,
Black History Month. Let's do this.
I make Black history every day, my friend.
Yeah.
But no, it's it's a fancy word for booker,
Okay.
promoter. Live Nation is the biggest live entertainment, company promoter in the world. And then, so I work in the comedy division. And so my gig is basically scouting out who the next, big touring comics are. And then, getting them signed up to deals to go out on the road, man, and try to grow their brand and grow their presence and get them from the clubs to the theaters to the arenas to the stadiums, and we represent anyone from, Dave Chappelle, obviously, to Kevin Hart, to Chris Rock, to Sebastian, Bill Burr, to, all the way down to people who are kind of newer on the scene, like Taylor Tomlinson and Randy Rainbow, and acts like that. So it's like, it's a wide range, and it's really exciting to a lot of the comics that I got the chance to work with in my days managing the Comedy Store and putting on my independent comedy shows, like to see these guys kind of get to a level where now I can kind of work with them on their touring and get them out there for the world to see them. It's really rewarding.
So how's that been with the pandemic?
Touch and go, my friend. Touch and go. It's such an interesting razor's edge to walk, where it's like you want everybody to be as safe and as protected as humanly possible and not at risk, right?
Right.
At the same time, we are indeed a business that is live shows,
Right.
live events. So how do you create a situation where you can make sure your audience is perfectly safe and at the same time, deliver a product that, we deliver at the highest of standards. And that's kind of what the whole idea behind everything that Chappelle has done during the pandemic. He named what he was doing in Ohio as Camp Courage because it takes a lot of balls to try to do something in this time. You know what I mean? And his whole philosophy is like, look, if you're afraid to take chances in life, then you might as well not even be living. So what is it? What are the safety protocols? What are the laws? We want to follow everything to the letter and beyond, just so that we can try something. You know what I mean? Try to give people something to be excited about, something to look forward to. And what he was able to create out there was absolute magic. And I was just so happy to be a part of it and go spend some time in Yellow Springs, Ohio, which I never thought I would ever go spend time in. And it was legit like adult summer camp. You're seeing Donnell Rollins waking up at 6 a.m. to go kayaking, and people are, cook barbecuing and staying in bunk beds in Dave's house. I mean, it's just like, it was an amazing experience. And obviously that's been like our flagship throughout the pandemic, but there are other markets that are kind of open. I know like Florida's been open, Georgia, Boise. So just trying to sprinkle in as many shows as we can, man. And I'm actually working on, I can't say what it is, but I'm actually working on a project that, if something like this were to happen in the future, that we'll be ready to go and be able to get content out to people without putting anybody at risk for coming out live. So I'm excited about it.
That's good, man. That's the move too, because a lot of people don't realize that once we get over this and everybody gets vaccinated and everything opens back up, we're still at risk for another one. Like it's
Right.
it's not going to end. It's not like all of a sudden humans are now immortal. Like no, we're all going to get sick again. It's going to be something else. COVID-25, whatever you want to call it. Something's going to come along, and that's a whole other conversation about health and taking care of yourself that I don't want to get into. But it's good that you guys are thinking ahead like that, because it is the inevitable future that something else will happen, and we got to be ready.
Well, that's what, and that is, those are the two things, that have come out of the whole COVID-19 thing. It's like, people I think are learning to appreciate what they have, like on a personal note, because you never know when that's all you got.
Mm-hmm.
If you weren't satisfied with your living situation pre-COVID, you had a tough time this last 11, 12 months or whatever.
A lot of divorces.
Yeah, a lot of divorces, a lot of people offing themselves. Mental health is at an all-time importance right now. And then B, it was just like, as a, human race, as a culture, as a society, you have to evolve. You know what I mean? Like, I even think about it with, podcasting. Like, I was so anti, call-ins and things like that for the old podcast. I was just like, no. If we have a guest, they're going to be in studio. We're going to talk to them face to face, and that's how it's going to fucking be. Joe Rogan doesn't do call-in. Right. You know what I mean?
And then Joe Rogan started doing call-ins.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, Zoom has opened up a whole new world. Like, I couldn't get Hacksaw Jim Duggan to come down to LA and just, podcast with us, but, he did our 4th episode of Wrestle Fetish, and then Tony Khan, like, what, I'm going to get this billionaire to take time from his schedule to fucking come down to the Comedy Store and do the thing? Nah, set up a Zoom call, talk to him for an hour, and it's great. And then, people are learning the differences, the different ways to be productive without actually being in an office. You know what I mean? The fact that my team is still able to execute, putting on shows and getting the ticketing right and promoting it and getting the fans there and all that, putting the safety protocols in place without ever having to really be on site or in our office anymore. And it's all done remotely. We're learning things about efficiency, and we're learning things about productivity that is going to change the corporate structure forever, literally forever at this point. So, it's interesting. This is really the next step in our evolution. And, honestly, it was due. Our generation, not to get too deep or philosophical or anything like that, but our generation never had like a great war or
a struggle,
conflict or struggle. Yeah, something like that. And so this is it. This is a generation defining moment and event. And, I always wondered about the fucking youth, the kids that, had to go to school through this or miss their prom or miss their graduation. And, those seminal moments in their life were taken away from them. And like, how that going to translate into them going out in the world later in their socialization? Like, it's just going to be, I couldn't imagine not having all that stuff and then starting my like freshman year of college at home.
Yeah, no.
You know what I mean? Like, that's just such a insane notion to me. And we're going to see what the fruits of that are really soon.
Yeah, it's going to be a weird result. I mean, I still feel like there's still socializing going on, obviously, with like this Zoom, and a lot of I've found myself doing like shit that I probably wouldn't have done, like happy hour with a bunch of friends from like back in the day, and they're like, "Hey, let's all meet up for a drink online." I'm like, okay. I mean, that's cool. I'd love to do that in person, but I guess not. I can't do it. So, so there is still some socializing, but there's a difference in socializing in person. I love the fact that I grew up in a time where like, we would go out and do crazy shit together, and then get in trouble and get hurt or whatever, and it makes you grow. But I guess it should be interesting. I think we're going to see way more technological that jump that we all saw coming of technology, where we saw it in our time where we didn't have I don't know how old you are. How old are you? You're like in your mid 30s, right?
Shockingly 37. Everyone thinks
37.
25 years old for some reason.
Well, that's the powerful African American genes.
It hasn't cracked yet. I like to say.
But I was around before internet, so I lived with before cell phones, before I had everything in my pocket. So I saw that crazy jump in technology, and we're going to see it again because now all these kids are growing up in this world and have to adapt and grow faster. So I think it'll be good. I think it'll be fun. I really do hope we do go back to having some kind of physical show, like live thing, concerts, mosh pits and everything. The whole, I miss that. I don't think people should grow up without some kind of physical struggle like that. Because that's the other thing is some people are taking this time to build up their health and work out and take that time and be productive with it, but some people are just getting worse physically. They're
Yeah.
getting bigger. People are just like, well, what's the fucking point? I haven't showered in months. Like, it's nuts.
Bananas.
Yeah. So, well, I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, but like you did some shows during the pandemic, heavy sets, right? Was that what it was called, or was that something else?
Yeah, we Heavy Sets is a show I do with a partner of mine, Jeff Danson. He goes by Heavy.
Okay.
He's a stand-up comic from Toronto. He's like a food influencer. I can't really explain what that means.
He
But
enjoys food and shows it to people.
very much so. And so yeah, we linked up just through normal comedy channels and meeting each other at the Comedy Store, blah blah blah. And so we started throwing this show called Heavy Sets. We were doing it by coastal, so we had it going on in New York once a month, and we had it going on here. It's been the Comedy Store, Improv, Laugh Factory, everywhere. And then once it all shut down, again through Heavy being a food influencer, he had a relationship with the Grand Central Market here in downtown Los Angeles. And so we started throwing some rooftop shows on top of that historic venue. They got one of the big standard parking decks, but the layout of it was really perfect to put on a stage and to have like a food tent and merch booth and all that good stuff. So we did a setup, and yeah, we were really blessed. And it had some great guys: Bill Burr, Tom Segura, Craig Robinson, Jeff Ross, you name it, has come through, and it's been amazing. And we're hoping to start it up again sooner than later. They had the whole outdoor ban,
Right. Yeah.
dining in LA for quite a little while, but
Well,
hopefully we can get that going again pretty soon.
yeah, I think I think we're open again. I stopped keeping track of it because I was just like, this is too. I can't.
It's so hard to tell, and it's so arbitrary. It seems like what is okay and what isn't. It's like even before, when we were trying to get the shows going initially, it's like, okay, no, people can eat outside, but if you have a stage 3 feet away, that's not okay. It's like, well, what? I don't.
Why?
Do we
Yeah.
do we need like a Shamu splash guard? Like, you know what I mean? Between the performer, like we'll do it. I don't give a fuck. But
Tell us what to
uh,
do so we can
yeah,
do
just
it. Yeah.
exactly. And
Yeah.
that was kind of the whole thing, like to bring it back to the Chappelle stuff. It was just like, tell us what to do. We will do everything. We will put everything in place and we'll build something. And, thank goodness it happened. And it meant a lot to a lot of the audiences who got to see it and to the performers too, man.
Yeah.
A lot of the guys were coming out there to perform for the love, and they were so grateful to be able to have a platform and a stage and an audience to get their thoughts out to. And it's important. Performers need that, artists need that. And I was just happy to be part of it. You know what I mean? Just in a small way.
Yeah, man. People don't understand how important it is for a performer to have that. Like they don't have anything else.
Yeah.
Like, what is a comedian gonna do? Get on and do like the Zoom comedy shows that have been happening? Like, I'm sorry, but no, that's not happening for me.
This is probably politically incorrect for who I am in this business. The Zoom comedy, no, not
No,
for me. Not for me.
no, not for me either. Not for me. It's also like the wrestling shows without an audience. Like, I'll take the Thunderdome. That's fine. I love what NXT's doing, but at the very beginning when we had no audience and
Yeah.
nothing, it was like, oh no, 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 no,
Yeah.
no.
It's just brutal. It's just brutal.
Mm-mm.
And, and then the fact that there's really no barrier for entry where it's just like anybody could put on a damn show
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
you're
yeah.
just watching. Again, I'm sorry, but jabrones out
Jabron.
here doing comedy. And, I'm not trying to be, bougie or stuck up about my comedy taste, but like, man, it really, a lot of guys who weren't getting booked before, it was really showing in these Zoom calls.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like you said, it's kind of a controversial topic, but I'm of the mentality of you need to be good at it. Like,
Yeah,
I'm more in music than comedy or anything else, or wrestling even, but
yeah,
I'm a musician, and when the video game Rock Band and Guitar Hero came out, I was like, oh, this is cool. I get to do something fun that's related to what I love to do. But
yeah.
then it started producing a bunch of shitty bands that because
Right.
you can master a song on expert in this fucking Guitar Hero, you think you're in a band? Like, no, you have to have some skill, and,
Yeah.
and there has to be that, like you were saying, like an entry. Like there has to be a gatekeeper. We can't just let everyone be in a band or everyone be a comedian. You're not. You have to work to get there. You know.
Look, and yeah, some people call me harsh for that, but I'm very much of the mind of Mitzi Shore,
Mm,
rest her soul. The one of the founders of the Comedy Store, the innovator, the genius, and her whole thing was do not encourage mediocre talent.
yeah.
It does nothing for anyone involved, man. And there's so many great artists out there who are trying to get on, and the marketplace just gets flooded by people who, maybe just have the hustle, you know what I mean, or just have the relationships, or just have the resources. And it's like, man, I'm not trying to hear all that. Like, let me get through all the bullshit and see who's really doing it. And that's what I've kind of really based my whole career on, man. Just like, I think that quality wins out. And every independent show that I booked stand up wise was always about that. It's like, okay, maybe I won't be able to get the biggest names, but I'm always going to get, the comics who I feel to my heart are really talented. You know what I mean? And it is, it's bred a lot of fruit. You know what I mean? Because now I'm in this position to where I can take comics out on the road and do different things. And a lot of those guys that I invested in early, they're peaking now.
Hmm.
And it's like, see, when you invest in talent, you know what I mean? You
Yeah.
can't go wrong. So yeah. If you whack, I don't want to watch your Zoom show. I don't want to go to your drive-in show. I don't want to go to none of that. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I want
I
to
hear
listen to
you.
you on Clubhouse. I'm sorry.
Clubhouse. That's the new one. I don't have Apple, so I'm missing out on that whole train. But I thought that radio app was going to take off, but it's not really. It's kind of just floundering right now.
It's so interesting what hits and what doesn't. Like, do you remember HD DVD?
Oh yeah,
And it was like,
yeah.
what's gonna hit, that or Blu-ray? And fucking for some reason, Blu-ray hit, and and now, just even now, like, Skype and
Skype
Google
or Zoom.
Hangout
Yeah,
have been happening forever, but Zoom came in, and now Zoom's the thing, and
yeah,
everyone just decided Zoom was the thing. So I don't know. Here we are, I
yeah.
guess.
You gotta adapt, man. And I think this is this whole pandemic thing is breeding a lot of mediocre talent because they have
Oof.
access to the technology and they have the platform. But at the same time, I think the cream will rise to the top where those with the real talent and the real hustle are the ones that are going to succeed. And a lot of this shit's just kind of flounder away and float off into the ether of the internet. And somebody on a Reddit somewhere be like, "Hey, remember this guy?" That,
God willing. God
yeah, man.
willing.
So what's the future for you, man? I'm guessing you're going to continue doing shows with Grand Central Comedy and heavy sets. I'm assuming the Wrestle Fetish is about to blow up for you. Are there other projects, something that you can Storecade obviously is in the back of your head for whenever everything opens up, but what do you got going on for the next year or two?
I would just say stay tuned. Like I said, I'm working on a big project for Live Nation.
Okay.
Wrestle Fetish is really only the beginning. Maybe I'll put a little hint out there. There's a lot of things that people fetishize, and maybe they want to have shows and podcasts about that. So
Mm,
who knows? So yeah, just working on a lot of things, man. I'm always trying to stay busy, always trying to stay hustling and just evolving and growing, man. And got access to a lot of talent. So a lot of these guys that I've been nurturing, don't be surprised to see them on a podcast near you.
Oh yeah, man. And it's attributed to that what you were talking about. Where like, oh, people think I'm an asshole for it, but you see the talent, and that's what's gotten you to this point. And that's how you got the talent buyer. That's why they trust you with that kind of a job, where like they know that you know where the talent is. So that's good.
Yeah,
That's
you know, I've only messed up a couple times, so
it's a good margin,
the track record speaks for itself.
That's good, man. And you know, ever since I discovered the Store Horsemen podcast, I was immediately hooked. And you were, you know, Tony was the golden pony, the top young rising comedian, but that show was led by you. You were the first voice you hear on the show, and greeting everyone. Everyone was part of the show, but I would say that's your show. Like you were the voice that led that show. You were the one that had the notes and the one that was pushing it along with, everybody else kind of chiming in and bringing in their flavor. But, ever since I first heard it, I was like, it became the only wrestling podcast I listened to because I was listening to a bunch of other ones that it was just getting boring.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you. Those are my brothers, man. Matt, Tony, Johnny, Josh. Josh is with me on Wrestle Fetish.
Yeah.
And then even the young boy Eddie, who I had to embarrass at Storecade. Like I said, those are my brothers, and who knows what the future holds for when the Comedy Store reopens, and hopefully there's a revival of the Store Horsemen, and we'll see what happens.
Oh yeah, man. And and anything I can do to help bring it back, let me know, because I thank you for even giving me an opportunity to be on the show at one point. Like it went from like, oh, I'm a fan of this wrestling podcast to actually being on it at one point. I was like, oh, okay, cool. But anything I can do to help, I'm always there for the Store Horsemen.
No, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate you having me on today, man.
Oh yeah, everybody that's listening or watching, please follow Chris. Chris_please, right?
All the personal stuff is at Chris_please. All of my exploits through this crazy business of comedy and entertainment. At Wrestle Fetish for all the wrestling stuff. Except for Twitter where it's at WrestleFPod. And then we got some guests coming up. Like Eddie told you, we already did Tony Khan. We did Hacksaw Jim Duggan. We got Raven coming up. We got Enzo coming up. We got a lot of people coming up, so It's gonna be good.
I gotta get Josh on there for you.
Oh yeah,
we'll get Barnett on there. Hell yeah,
great.
But yeah, everybody listening, follow Wrestle Fetish. Check out all the episodes that are out now, and follow Chris, and keep an eye out. Chris knows what's up.
I do what I can, man. Thanks, Eddie.
All right, brother. Thanks for coming on.
All right, man.
Take care, dude. See you soon. Yep.